It was a cold winter day. The sky was covered with gray clouds, and the harsh wind whistled through the ruins. Timur was searching for a place to hide, fleeing from the pressure of his enemies that day. He was exhausted, weary, and wounded. The heavy armor he wore felt not like a burden on his body, but on his very soul. He withdrew to a secluded corner of the ruins and leaned his back against the stone wall. Inside him, there was a feeling he had never been accustomed to: hopelessness. Until that day, he had fought many battles and endured countless hardships. But this time, it felt as if everything was over. His men had scattered, his plans had fallen apart. Was this the end? His dreams, his victories, his ambition to build an empire, were they all an illusion? Just as he was getting lost in these thoughts, his eyes caught sight of something small moving on the ground. A tiny ant was carrying a grain of wheat many times larger than itself, struggling to pass through the cracks between the stones of the ruins. The ant climbed up the rock with its heavy burden, but each time it lost its balance and tumbled back down. Timur lifted his head slightly and began to watch intently. 1, 2, 3. Each time the ant fell, it would go back down, lift the grain of wheat onto its back, and attempt to climb again. It was a tiny creature, but it possessed immense determination. It did not give up, it did not surrender. Every time it tried again, Timur was now completely focused on it. 10, 20, 30 ant fell countless times, but each time it started over. Timur thought about his own helplessness. I am a great ruler. I bear the responsibility of hundreds of my soldiers. After all these years of wars and victories, will I now give up in the corner of a ruin? At that moment, on its 50th attempt, the ant, with great effort, finally managed to carry the grain of wheat to the top of the stone. It paused for a brief moment, then quickly moved towards its nest. It had won its victory. Timur smiled faintly. The faith that had been lost within him had begun to sprout again. He murmured to himself, "Will I not even be as persistent as this ant?" At that moment, he stood up, adjusted his armor, and with the warrior spirit returning to his eyes, set out once more. That day, not only the fate of an ant, but also that of a great ruler was changed. And Timur, inspired by the perseverance of the unyielding ant, became a leader who would never be forgotten in history.